Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiri. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhagavati Naistiki. So continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Purusha Shukta confirmed. Text number 34 onwards. So Brahmaji is further speaking to Narad Muni. Na bharti me angam rishopalakshate, na vai kvachin me manaso mrishagati, na me rishikani patanti asatpathe, yan me hridot kantya vatadhrito harihi. So Brahma is saying, "Oh Narad, because I have caught hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, with great zeal, whatever I say has never proved to have been false. Nor is the progress of my mind ever deterred, nor are my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter." So see the advantage of getting hold of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Means every auspiciousness that you can think of will happen in our life. And Brahma is saying, everything that I say is never proved to have been false. It's all mercy of Krishna. Although sometimes Brahmaji has given benedictions to the demons, sometimes Shivji gives benedictions to demons, which can or which have been proven to be detrimental to devotees. But Krishna makes sure, because Brahmaji, Shivji are his devotees, he takes care of their benedictions. He never lets them go prove wrong, because his devotees have said something. Well, Brahmaji gave benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, and Hiranyakashipu created terrorism, terror all over the world, not just one planet, all over the universe. He created terror. And his own son, he wanted to kill him, although Prahlad Maharaj was a Mahabhagat. And Narsimhadev appeared. Narsimhadev protected Prahlad Maharaj, killed Hiranyakashipu. And after Narsimhadev sat down on the throne of Hiranyakashipu, and everybody was praying to him to pacify him down, he got pacified when Prahlad Maharaj approached him. So Prahlad Maharaj prayed to him. Narsimhadev was pacified. And when Narsimhadev was leaving, he told Brahmaji, "Do not give these kind of benedictions ever again." He told him. But to keep the word of Brahmaji, Narsimhadev kept all the benedictions intact and still killed Hiranyakashipu. He did not violate any of the benedictions that Brahmaji gave. This is how much he loves his devotees. And Brahmaji is getting emotional here. He said, "My words have never proven to be false. My progress of my mind is never deterred," means it never stopped or it never got distracted, and nor my senses ever degraded by temporary attachment to matter. That's the real achievement. Perfect. Lord Brahma is the original speaker of Vedic wisdom to Narad, and Narad is a distributor of transcendental knowledge all over the world through his various disciples like Vyasadeva and others. The followers of Vedic wisdom accept the statements of Brahmaji as gospel truth, and transcendental knowledge is thus being distributed all over the world by the process of disciplic succession from time immemorial, since the beginning of the creation. So this knowledge is being distributed since the beginning of creation, because Brahmaji here, he's speaking to Narad Muni, but he's speaking of the time when the creation hadn't even started yet. So this knowledge has been there since beginning of creation. That's why this is a topmost knowledge. It has transcended the phases of time. Any Satyuga, Dwapar Treta Yuga, Kali Yuga, doesn't matter. Which Manu's time, it doesn't matter. This knowledge has been intact as it is. So that's why when people say, oh, our religion is 2000 years old, our religion is 1500 years old, and one path is only 60 or 70 years old, and they say this is the right path and this is the right religion. It can't be. Since the soul is eternal, soul in different form of living entities has been there since the time of creation. So the knowledge of how to get out of this body has to be also there since the time of creation. It cannot be that they put in jail first and then the knowledge came along how to get them out. No. So this is, people have to understand. Of course, people want to follow different practices. That's a different story. That's up to them, because whatever level they have, they will start from that level only. The level of consciousness they have, they'll go on from that level only. But as a matter of appreciation and as a matter of respect towards Vedic literature, we have to understand this knowledge has been there since the time of creation. Lord Brahma is a perfect, liberated living being within the material world, and any sincere student of transcendental knowledge must accept the words and statements of Brahmaji as infallible. The Vedic knowledge is infallible because it comes down directly from the Supreme Lord unto the heart of Brahma. And since he is the most perfect living being, Brahmaji is always correct to the letter. And this is because Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord who has earnestly accepted the lotus feet of the Lord as a supreme truth. That's really marvelous, and it's like an ideal for us. In the Brahm Samhita, which is compiled by Brahmaji, he repeats the aphorism, Govindamadi Purusham Tavaham Bhajami. I am a worshipper of the original personality of God and Govinda, the primary Lord. So whatever he says, whatever he thinks, and whatever he does normally in his mood are to be accepted as truth because of his direct and very intimate connection with Govinda, the primeval Lord. Sri Govinda, who pleasingly accepts the loving transcendental service of his devotees, gives all protection to the words and actions of his devotees. The Lord declares in Bhagavad Gita, Konteya Pratijanihi, O son of Kunti, please declare it. And he says, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. The Lord asks Arjuna to declare. And why? Because sometimes the declaration of Govinda himself may seem contradictory to mundane creatures. But the mundaner will never find any contradiction in the words of the Lord's devotees. Why? Because Krishna himself protects the words of his devotees. The Lord declares his of him. The devotees are especially protected by the Lord so that they may remain infallible. Therefore, the process of devotional service always begins in the service of the devotee who appears in disciplic succession. The devotees are always liberated, but that does not mean that they are impersonal. The Lord is a person eternally, and the devotee of the Lord is also a person eternally. Because the devotee has his sense organs even at the liberated stage, he is therefore a person always. And because the devotee's service is accepted by the Lord in full reciprocation, the Lord is also a person in his complete spiritual embodiment. So neither the devotee nor the Lord is Nirakar. People really love talking about Nirakar and Nirvishesh and this and that. Even in the liberated state, devotee will remain the soul will keep its identity. So, so liberated stage, soul will have pure spiritual senses. So similarly, the Lord, he always has a spiritual pure senses. So both are person. The devotee's senses, being engaged in the service of the Lord, never go astray under the attraction of false material enjoyment. The plans of the devotee never go in vain, and all this is due to the faithful attachment of the devotee for the service of the Lord. This is a standard of perfection and liberation. Anyone beginning from Brahmaji down to the human being is at once put on the path of liberation simply by his attachment in great earnestness for the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord. The Lord affirms this in Bhagavad Gita. Mam cha yo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samtitiyata brahma bhuyaya kalpata. Anyone, therefore, who is earnestly serious in heart and soul about being in intimate touch with the personality of Godhead, in the relationship of transcendental loving service, will always be infallible in words and action. The reason is that the Supreme Lord is absolute truth, and anything earnestly dovetailed with the absolute truth attains the same transcendental quality. On the other hand, any amount of mental speculation on the strength of material science and knowledge without any bona fide touch with the absolute truth is sure to be a mundane untruth and failure, simply due not being in touch with the absolute truth. So Prabhupada is saying the reason is because Krishna is absolute truth, and anything in relation, anything in contact with them or in his service becomes absolute truth. So Krishna makes sure that whatever his devotee says happens. That's his mercy. Of course, devotee doesn't say anything whimsically. He is always guided or inspired to say from within his heart. And Krishna makes sure that thing happens always. But for that, one has to be a devotee of the level of Brahmaji or Narad Muni. Just like, of course, Nityanand Prabhu is Balramji himself, so he is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But when he was playing the part of a devotee 500 years ago as Lord Nityananda, when he saw Jagai and Madhai, and he Haridas Thakur, that if these two brothers, although they are the lowest of the mankind, and they're the debauchees, they're sinful, there's not a single sin they haven't committed. But he said, if they become devotees, or if they chant the names of Gauranga and they take shelter of Gauranga, then the glories of my Lord Gauranga will travel far and wide. And Haridas Thakur, of course, he didn't say anything. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he heard that, and then he told Nityananda, because you have this desire that these two guys become devotees, they will become. Very soon they will join our Kirtan party. So Mahaprabhu wanted to make sure Lord Nityananda's words don't go in vain. Of course, it's Lord Nityananda, Lord Balram. His words will never go in vain anyway. But this is one of the benedictions, one of the mercies of Krishna. He never lets his devotees down. Like Srila Prabhupada, when he hadn't even started ISKCON, he hadn't even come to America yet. He was still in India, and he had to go to Bombay from Allahabad. I believe this is a time when he went for his this ticket by Sumati Morarji on Jaladuta. He had to go and beg her, request her for the ticket. So he would pass by the land where today Juhu temple is. And that time, That land was pretty much in the outskirts, and there were liquor shops on that land. And Prabhupada would pass by, and he had that land in mind. And that time only, he had prayed to Krishna, if you ever give me money, I'll buy this piece of land and make a nice temple for you. That was long back. And then he came to America, then he preached, he started the movement, and when he went back to India in 1972 or 70s, then he developed India, especially Bombay, Vrindavan and Mayapur, and in Bombay, at that very same land, he built the Juhu temple that we see right to these days. So Krishna fulfilled his words. Krishna fulfilled his desires. Of course, Prabhupada is fully surrendered and he wanted to serve Krishna only. That was his only motto. But Krishna fulfilled his desire. Or maybe Prabhupada had seen the potency or the spiritual nature of that land. We don't know. But his words came true. And in fact, one of his personal servants, His Grace Shyam Sundar Prabhu, who served him for many, many years, and he said once Prabhupada had gone in Bombay, he had gone to different places, he had to meet somewhere, some places, and where our Chapati temple is at present, and it's a wonderful temple, wonderful congregation, very nice devotees over there, brahmacharis and congregation. Prabhupada, when he walked by that street, Shyam Sundar Prabhu said that he looked in that direction and he said that there'll be a very beautiful temple one of these days over here. And at that time, it was an orphanage actually over there. So these are the things. I mean, we think, oh, it's mysterious and magical or this or that, but it's all in the hands of Krishna. Krishna can do anything, especially to keep the word of his pure devotees. That is the purport of this important verse. A grain of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. So Prabhupada summarized it like this. A grain of devotion is more valuable than tons of faithlessness. Text 35. So aham samapya mayastapo mayaha prajapati nam apivanditah patihi asthaya yogam nipunam samahitas tam nadhya gacham yat atma sambhavaha. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and I am an expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. So that's another quality of Krishna, that not everybody can know everything about him. Of course, nobody knows everything about him. That's a different story. But to know him to a great extent, even that's not possible. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord, despite his vast learning in Vedic wisdom. Despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart. Hridayotkanthayatava, which is the devotional service moved. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualification as scientist or speculative philosopher or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in Bhagavad Gita 18:54-55. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of Vedic wisdom, austerity, etc., can help one on the path of devotion service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect because even in that position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self-realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee, by service mode, bhakti only, can gradually know the personality of Godhead. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of Vishate as referring to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in the material existence, one is merged in the existence of the Lord. No materialist can disentangle self from matter, for the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord. Because Prabhupada gives a little bit more, talks about more about liberation, and there is no such thing as we are going to merge or we're going to lose our identity. So following paragraph, Prabhupada writes, Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Therefore, who can be more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantist therefore cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta or Vedanta plus Bhakti. So Prabhupada is writing, without Bhakti, just studying Vedanta Sutras or Vedanta Vedas, one cannot know Krishna. There is no way. Vedanta means self-realization, and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, by self-surrender and a devotional attitude, and by nothing else. Actually, when somebody comes to the level of bhakti and pure devotional service, he doesn't even want to know about Krishna. What is there to know about him? It is the purpose is to serve him. That's it. And Krishna, just like Prabhupada said again and again about his books, the purpose that he has written. Prabhupada said, I never wrote these purposes. Krishna dictated me. I just wrote whatever he dictated me. I don't have any knowledge. And Prabhupada said it emphatically. Not just he was trying to make a point or trying to get us to read his books, thinking, oh, Krishna dictated, so we better read. No. He said it again and again. And once one journalist was interviewing Prabhupada, and Prabhupada's disciple, Kirtanand Maharaj, was there with Prabhupada. And journalist asked about these books, and Prabhupada said, oh, Krishna dictated these books to me, and I just wrote. So Kirtanand Maharaj, he was trying to impress that journalist. Oh, no, Swamiji meant that Krishna inspired him to write these books. Prabhupada stopped him right there. He said, no, Krishna didn't inspire me. He dictated me these books, and I wrote them. So this is what Krishna can do to a person who is fully surrendered. So Krishna can do miracles through a person who's surrendered, or who becomes like a puppet. There is no way Arjun and Pandavas could have won that war of Mahabharata. There was no way. But Krishna, because Arjun surrendered, and Krishna fought through Arjun. He wanted to give the credit to Arjun. And he wanted to utilize Arjun in his service. And he wanted to show to the world that you surrender like Arjun and I'll take care of you. Even if on the other side was Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Dushasan, Duryodhan, Jayadratha, so many amazing warriors. Bhishma himself, although Bhishma is a devotee of Krishna, he is a Mahajan, not an ordinary person. But Arjun surrendered. Arjun was fully surrendered to Krishna. Of course, Bhishma was also surrendered, but his role was different. And Krishna wanted to use Arjuna. And Bhishma also, he used Bhishma to show to the world that even if you are a person like Bhishma who is unconquerable, who has the knowledge of all the scriptures, who has the benediction of dying whenever he wants to die, and who just cannot be defeated, even if such a person is against my devotee, he has to vanish. He will die. He will be defeated. So this is how he glorifies his devotees who are fully surrendered. So Prabhupada is writing, in the Brahma Samhita it's also said, Vedeshu Durlabham, or simply by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhakta, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva therefore was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras, but over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narad, they compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore is the absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. And this, we are trying to understand it by mercy of Prabhupada. So we can read his purpose and discuss and try to understand some Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. So anybody has any questions or comments? So I guess we stop here. Thank you all very much for contributing so generously for that wedding. I'm pretty